Excel slicers can be used as alternatives to filters. They're really flexible and they're kind of fun to work with. Slicers can be used with Excel tables, but it's with pivot tables that they become really powerful. And I know that pivot tables can be kind of intimidating. Slicers can be a big help for you looking at your data, managing your data. And if you've got Excel 2010 or later, you'll be able to use slicers with your data. So let's talk about how they work. Here on the left, we've got a data table of some Oscar nominated and winning movies. And over on the right is a pivot table that we created based on that data. Now, if we would like to start filtering some of the data that we see in this pivot table, we can use slicers. You may be familiar with slicers in terms of using them with the tables, but yes, you can use them with pivot tables as well. And the process for creating your slicers is very similar. If you haven't done it before, here's how it works. You click anywhere within the pivot table, go to Insert, and then go on over to Slicer. This brings up the Insert Slicers modal, and for here I'm going to pick Status, Award Year, and Category to give us a lot of choices that we can use. You'll see what happens here when I hit OK. We now have 3 slicers that correspond to each of those types of data. Now when you get these are just kind of plopped in the middle of the screen, but you can move them around, you can resize them like this. It's really up to you how you want to do it. I'm going to just kind of manage them this way. I'll put the award year under here, do something like this. So that's a nice start. You can also start color coding them if you want. You can change the colors based on themes that you've got, or you can leave them the way that they are. And now this award year one looks a little, it looks kind of big and unwieldy, but what you can do is make it so instead of one column, you have multiple columns. So the way to do that is go up to the slicer menu, and you can adjust the number of columns. So if you have lots of buttons, you can make them look a little more organized for yourself. But actually, I think I'm going to make it 6. So now I've got 6 columns here, and then I can do this. And now I have a nice little area of my slicers where I can start managing the data in this pivot table. Okay, enough messing around with this. Let me show you how this works. When the slicers first come up, you're in single select click mode. And what does that mean? Well, if you click the award year, then what it does is deselects all the other ones, and it just shows you the records for that one year. You'll see 2016, the nominees and winners for these 2 categories. If I click 2019, it changes to 2019 instead. If I click on winner, well, now I've got 2019 in this slicer and winner here. You'll see the 2 different winners for those 2 categories in 2019. Let's clear the filters and start over with the slicers. You do that by clicking on the clear filter button in each of the slicers, and now everything is back. Let's say that you wanted to go through the data in this pivot table, but you need multiple award years. Let's say you want 2017 through 2019. Well, you can use the multi-select option. What you do is you're going to click right here, click. Now it's highlighted. And now I'm going to deselect these other years I don't want simply by clicking on them. Now we've got 2017 through 2019 selected. And let's say I only want Best Picture, so I will click on Best Picture. And now show me the winners. And these are the 3 winners for these 3 years for Best Picture. All great movies. So that's how you manage your data using slicers. They act just like filters within this pivot table. But could you control multiple pivot tables with one set of slicers? The answer is yes. Let's talk about how we do that. Let me switch over to this other document. Right here we've got a pivot table, very similar, of the Oscar-nominated movies. And this pivot table was created by this table here. That's the source. So this pivot table, just for our own information, is called Movie Stats. If we want to control multiple pivot tables with one set of slicers, here's the important thing. They both need to be created from the same source. So in this case, both pivot tables need to be created from the original table right here on the Oscars tab. So let's go over how this works. We're clicked inside the table. That means we can create another pivot table right now. Let's go up to Insert, Pivot Table. We're going to create our second pivot table. The source is T Oscars. We're going to put the new pivot table in our existing worksheet over here on the Multiple tab. Let's click right here. That's a good place to put it, right next to the first one. And this pivot table will be a little different. I'd like to see a count of the number of nominees and winners from each year. So we're going to set this up a little bit differently. We still are going to pick status and year and movie, but let's move movie to the values and move year into the rows. And you'll see now, instead of a list of movies, we have a count of nominees and winners. And let's give this the name year stats. So we've got year stats, and this one is called movie stats. Now that we have our two pivot tables, we need the slicers. So let's click on movie stats and go to Insert Slicers. We'll choose the same categories as before, status, year, and category. And I'm going to just quickly move these slicers around. You've seen this before. So at the moment, these slicers are only associated with the first pivot table, movie stats. You'll see as I start changing what's selected, it only affects the first pivot table but not the second. That's because we created the slicers from the first pivot table. So let me show you how to link those together. What we're going to do is click on a slicer that you want to use to control these multiple pivot tables and go down to Report Connections. You'll see you just need to tick the year stats, the other pivot table you want to control, and then hit OK. And now, once you start selecting, you'll see the data changes for both pivot tables, and it's as easy as that. So there you go. Slicers can be really helpful, really powerful when you want to filter the data that you're looking at in both tables and pivot tables, and even multiple pivot tables. And if you want to learn more about all these topics, check out our other videos and visit us at GoSkills.com. Ready to learn more about Microsoft Excel? Then check out the full course on GoSkills.com. Click the link in the description.